Right now you are bored. That's probably why you opened this video. But for almost all of human history, boredom did not exist. Not because life was more interesting, because the brain had no way to go empty. Go back 200,000 years. You wake up before the sun, no alarm, no schedule, nothing on the to-do list. And yet the entire day will be full. Tracking an animal through the forest demands total attention for hours at a time. Preparing food, carrying water, fixing a broken tool. Every task is a chain of small problems the brain has to solve one by one. There was no gap between one thing and the next, where the mind could go loose, idle, waiting for stimulation. Boredom, the way we feel it today, is a very recent invention. And it has an approximate date. Historian Ralph Samuels, studying working-class diaries from 19th century Britain, found something strange. Before the Industrial Revolution, rural workers did not describe their work as monotonous. They described it as hard, sometimes cruel, but not boring. The word boredom, in its modern sense, first appears in print in 1852. Dickens used it in the novel Bleak House. Before that, the concept had no name, because it had no shape recognizable enough to name. What changed was not the human being. It was the environment. The factory created something new in the history of the species, time without task, with the body still. The worker on an assembly line repeated the same motion for 12 hours. The body was busy. The mind was not. That mismatch, body in motion, attention free, no problem to solve, is exactly the state we now call boredom. And the brain didn't know what to do with it, because throughout all of evolution, free attention was a signal of danger. If you weren't doing anything, something was wrong. The nervous system treated the void as an alarm, and it still does. In 2014, Timothy Wilson, psychologist at the University of Virginia, published a study that made headlines worldwide. He placed participants alone in an empty room for 15 minutes. No phone, no book, nothing to do, just think. 2/3 of the men preferred to give themselves electric shocks rather than sit in silence. Shocks that they applied to themselves, voluntarily. Wilson wrote, "The mind does not like to be alone with itself. That's not a character flaw, that's physiology. The brain was built to solve problems. When there are no problems, it manufactures discomfort. Boredom is the alarm system firing with no fire." But here's the part almost nobody talks about. Your ancestors were not immune to the void. They had a solution. Holly Wiesner, anthropologist at the University of Utah, spent decades studying the Juhuanzi hunter-gatherers of the Kalahari. She analyzed hundreds of hours of conversation day and night. During the day, conversations were practical: food, tools, hunting routes. At night, around the fire, something shifted completely. 81% of nighttime conversations were stories. Stories of journeys, of people who had died, of animals that behaved strangely, of dreams, of spirits. They filled the void of free attention with something the brain could chew on. The difference is that stories around the fire were collective, slow, built gradually. The phone is alone, instant, and never ends. And here it gets stranger. When modern boredom appeared in the 19th century, the response was immediate: industrial entertainment, popular newspapers, vaudeville, then radio, cinema, television. Every technology promised the same thing: fill the void. Everyone created a bigger void because the problem was not a lack of content, it was that the brain, now with free time for the first time in history, needed to learn how to exist without a task. and it never did. Every generation received a faster solution before developing that capacity. You inherited the problem without getting the time to solve it. That is why your body reacts the way it does when the phone disappears. The restlessness that appears after 2 minutes without a screen is not weakness. It is the same alarm from 200,000 years ago, firing because your attention came loose. Idle mind, danger near. That was what the nervous system learned every time there was nothing to do. The problem is that the phone has disarmed that alarm so fast, so many times a day, that the threshold kept dropping. What used to take hours to become uncomfortable now takes seconds. You didn't get addicted to screens. You became intolerant of the void. And those are different things. Nobody is suggesting going back to tracking wild boar barefoot. The Industrial Revolution brought vaccines, antibiotics, running water. The phone brought maps, translators, access to every book ever written. These are not small gains. But there is a cost that rarely appears on the bill. Every time you filled the silence before it could become uncomfortable, you trained your brain to need more. And the silence your ancestors tolerated, and the void between one hunt and the next, the night before the fire was lit, that silence was where the mind reorganized itself. It was where uninvited ideas appeared. It was where human beings were alone with themselves and survived it. So the question is not whether you should stop using your phone. The question is, when was the last time you were truly bored all the way through and didn't run? Because maybe what you call boredom is not emptiness. Maybe it's the only hour of the day when your brain is still yours, and you spend your whole life filling it,